Hello friends, I'm C. Abdul Rafeq. I'm pleased to welcome you to this third part of the presentation of this e-learning series. This presentation is on harnessing the power of data analytics for assurance and compliance. I hope you have looked at the part 1 and part 2 of the presentation. If you have not seen that, I suggest you see that videos part 1 and part 2 because all the videos are in a sequential order. So it makes much more sense when you see the third video after already having seen the first and the second video. In this presentation, we are going to get into details of the 20 functions with the demo. This is the official disclaimer. Now, if you look at the agenda of the presentations of this series of videos, in part 1, we covered the era of digital transformation. We also discussed what is data analytics and what is its impact. Part 2 of the presentation, we covered how can auditors use data analytics to demonstrate value. We covered the 7 key features, and we also showed you some demo of some of the features and the functions in each of the features of the data analytics software. In this presentation, we are going to cover the top 20 functions of data analytics. I'll also give you a demo with examples. In part 4 of the presentation, we'll discuss how auditors can use data analytics for assurance and compliance with some examples and case studies. We'll also look at how auditors can use data analytics to navigate and be prepared for the future. Top 20 techniques of data analytics. Now, these top 20 techniques could be available in Excel, could be available in application software. Now, it's not necessary that all these 20 techniques could be available in all the software. You may pick and choose depending on the need. For example, Excel may have some of the functions which could be similar. Wherever possible, I'll also compare and show you that this could be available in Excel also. But I'm not going to give a demo of Excel, but the focus would be more on the data analytics software. So you will also be able to relate and understand that you can do some of the functions in Excel, but probably with a little more skill set as required, or you could be already using these features. Then it's good. You're already using data analytics without even knowing that you're using data analytics. It's also possible that many of the application software have reporting and querying features where this data analytics could be used. Why use data analytics? We know because of the abundance of data. When you have large volume of data, you can access and analyze 100% of the data by using data analytics. And we know that data can be processed into information by the software, but it requires human intelligence and expertise to infer insight from information. What enterprises require is actionable insights, which is based on facts. Like one of the top IT honchos said, we believe in God, but everyone brings data. So for the purpose of decision making, the decision has to be based on data which is available. We also covered what CS can do with data analytics. We can establish the facts. We can explore hunches, specific hunches we want to find out, specific areas where you got doubts. We can draw inferences. We can obtain insights from the data. We can confirm hindsight in terms of what happened in the past. We can also do predictive analysis, using predictive analytic features of the data analytics. This gives you a perspective of what we have covered already. What are different types of questions which can be answered using data analytics software. This gives you a snapshot of what we have covered in the earlier presentation. We talked about usage of data analytics at various stages for audit. You can use it during risk assessment. In the initial stage where you want to identify the high risk areas, you can use it for performing analytical procedures. At a macro level, compare between two given set of years or two given sets of data or multiple sets of data. You can also perform substantive testing or details or testing procedures. You can also do compliance testing. At a macro level, you can check, for example, whether authorization levels have been properly implemented. You can analyze the data and check whether the data which has been entered is as per the authorization limits which has been set by the company. So now, getting back into the crux of this presentation, we like to focus on the 20 top functions of data analytics with a practical demo. So these are the 20 functions of data analytics we're going to cover. The standard way approach which I'm going to follow is I'm going to explain this function, then I'm going to give you a demo of the function with example. You can pause and recheck the video if you like when you want to see the functions in detail. considering the positive time, I'm going to quickly run through each of the functions. Now, whether it's possible in Excel or any other software, my objective here is to give you overall idea about the concept. You can explore where these functions are available, how this can be used in the specific software which you're using, or you can search for this type of software which can be used for data analytics. Let's get into the first function, Harmonise Data. So I said the most important thing which you have to do when you do data analytics is to purify the data, or it's also called as curate the data, or get the data ready for audit. This requires that to reformat the selected data, which means you format the columns, heading, rows, etc. as per the standard tabular format which is required. Now let me show you one function which talks about harmonizing the data. Now this is a sample data which I got of a data analytics software. I've got the index sheet. Okay, this gives me a list of files. I'm going to use a sheet called procurement to harmonize. Now if you see here, now this particular sheet has got multiple things. It's got images, it's got columns which are not properly formatted. It's also got some empty columns. So it means that total 13 rows which I need to remove, and then I harmonize the data. So how do I use this function? I go to a function called transform, harmonize sheet. So this sheet is open. I can harmonize the worksheet or the workbook. I'm just going to select the worksheet. Now here you've got various types of features which can be used. I'm not getting into details of each of this. I'm going to use one standard feature, select basic options. Okay, this is selected basic options, and I want to remove the first 13 rows. I'm going to say what are the 13 rows to be removed. Now just see what will happen. I click OK. Now you find the data is converted, the worksheet is converted to standard format by removing all the data which is not required. I think I probably did not give it correctly. Let's see what happened. Harmonize sheet. Let's perform this again. Now I want to remove top 10 rows. I didn't select. See, I had to select top 10 rows. Okay, and then I select the basic options. Right, we want to remove the top 10 rows, and I say OK. Now you see the data is all perfect and ready for your analysis. Now if you see here, you also have got some links here. I would like to remove the links. We also got a feature whereby you can say remove extra links, internal external links. I say it will show me what are the links available. I say remove all hyperlinks. I'll say it gives me a warning message that it's going to remove. I say yes. Now you see all the hyperlinks are removed. Okay, quite often you get data, you find it is with the links. Now you find this data is ready for analysis. This is what is called as harmonize or curating the data. So it's important that you get the data in a standard structure, in a standard format, so that you can ready. Now once you got the data ready, you find you can also use it for the purpose of analysis in Excel. Okay, which you are familiar. Now in Excel, for example, you know that in this case, once you've done this, there will be no blank rows. You just see here, I go to control end, it goes to the bottom. Control top, it comes to the top. Right, so now we've learned what is the harmonize sheet or curating the data. Let's go to the second function, stratify the data. What does stratify mean? I group the selected data into different strata based on intervals. Let me give a practical demo so that you get an idea of how this is done. I'm going to go to a file called sales trans here. Now if you see here, this strata should be available in data. I've got the first function, stratify, and there are three types of stratification: numeric, date, character. I can also do based on the key field or aging. I'm just going to give a demo of one function, which is numeric stratification. So it shows me the fields. I say field to stratify. Selection is what is most important. You need to select the right field, because computers operate by the principle of garbage in, garbage out, GIGO. So if you don't select the right data, you're going to get the wrong results. Now it by default is identified what is the minimum value in this sales, what is the maximum value, and it's also got an increment of 22,600, which means the difference it has divided by 10. Now I'd like to change this and make it as 25,000. So it means I want it in the intervals of 25,000. I say fill. So I got this. So it means this is the strata I want between 500 to 25,499, 25,500 to 50,499, and like this I've got different about 10 strata which is there. I can also do free interval, which means I specify the interval which I want. Now, the most important thing I have to do is I have to click OK. I can also group this, which means based on this, I want to group this based on the name or the customer ID or user ID. And I can also put a condition. For example, I would like to perform this analysis stratification for all sales which is greater than 1,000. Okay, so it gives me this. I'm not going to perform this. I just want to give you an idea that there are multiple advanced functions which are available. Now, the most important thing, I'll say OK. Now you see all the 6,666 records would be analyzed and stratified, and you will get the result in a few seconds. Now you see you got the data, you got the result here, 500 to 25,499. It tells you what is the count, what is the percentage, and what is the maximum percentage here. So if you see here, out of this total, 69.07% belongs to this data. Then again, if you look at the next one, 1,303, which means if you look at the first and second one, nearly 80% of the data, 90% of the data belongs to the sales which is less than 50,500. Now you've got this exceptional sales. I would like to know what is this exceptional sales which is 2,26,500. I just double click on this. I should be able to drill down and go to this particular data. Okay, so this is what is called a stratification, which means I stratify the data based on specific groups, based on my specific requirement. Next, we'll perform aging. Aging computes the difference of selected two date columns and stratifies based on specific intervals for the computed date difference. Let's see how it works. I'm going to take the same sales data and perform aging. I go to aging. Now, if you see, aging can be performed on numeric date fields only. Now, by default, it is selected what is the minimum date and what is the maximum date and what is the aging date. I would like to perform the aging date as on 31/3/17. Okay, it tells me what is the minimum interval 0 and maximum interval 364. It has taken the interval of 30 by default. Let's say I make it as 45. And same, if you see, it has the same look and feel. I say fill. Now it's created this data 0 to 45, 45 to 90 like that. I can get the result in summary or in details. I want in summary. Then I click OK. This should be able to group the data based on the age from 31/7, from the date of the transaction to 31/3/37. You should be able to get the data and get to know, okay, what are the number of transactions happened here. So you find 0 to 45, there are 447 transactions, 45 to 90, there are 429 transactions. Like that, you get the aging of the data. It also tells me what is the upper bound, which means there are transactions which are beyond the specified date. Okay, this is how you can perform aging. Now you can also perform aging based on two fields. For that, I need to go to one more data. Let me go to the index sheet. There is a file called aging on two fields. Okay, so here, let me show you how this aging for two fields works. Now I got the sales date and the receipt date. I'd like to find out who are the customers who are paying on time. So I go to date in Stratify. I'd like to do Stratify based on aging. By default, it has picked up the dates. I'd like to have the sales date, and then I have the receipt date. It tells me the minimum date is 25 and the maximum date is 199, and it's taken as the increment as 70. I'd like to take the increment as 30. By 30, you can take 25 depending on what your need is. Okay, I say fill. What this function will do is it will compute the difference between the receipt date and the sale date and stratify or group them based on the specific adder, so that you'll know who are the customers who are paying on time, who are the customers who are actually default or delayed payers. And you can find out the group of this delayed payment. Then you find here, it looks like most of the customers pay on time. Between 25 to 54, there are 90%, 96% of the transactions. And you find 55 to 84, you find the customers who are delayed. You'll also get to know the customers who are between 175 to 199. Okay, this is how you got started aging. Let me show you one more function pertaining to aging. Here, where I would like to pick up the details pertaining to aging of inventory. Let's say I have a function file called aging analysis. Now this has a list of the purchase date, and this has a list of all the purchase items which I got in stock as on date, and it gives me the date of purchase. I would like to do a aging analysis of this inventory. Okay, so I go to data, I go to aging. Now here you see the date starts from the goods which are lying in stock starts from 3rd April 2014, and the maximum date, the latest purchase is 25th March 2017. Now I'd like to change this date to 31st March because that's the date on which I'm doing the aging. Now it is found out this date. I'd like to give this as 45 days. Okay, I fill the interval and I say okay. Here also you got this option, aging summary, aging details. When you say aging details, it gives the list for each of the stock items and tells you what is the specific age for each of the items. Now if you see for each of the stock items, I get to know, okay, what is the aging date? What is the stock which is between 0 to 45, 45 to 90, 90 to this one. So like that we'll get a complete list, and also get the highly exceptional items where the stock is lying since more than 2 years and 3 years, which means I can easily identify whether this is an obsolete stock or this is a stock which is not available but is being shown in the books. Now this is a simple function of aging which can be performed using data analytics. Can you perform this in Excel? Yes, you can perform this in Excel also, but you need to figure out how to do this because it will not have, Excel will not have ready-made functions for this. Now let's go to the fourth function, which is summarize the data, groups each distinct value in a numeric column and displays corresponding count and the sum. Okay, this concept is very clear, very simple. Now I'm going to go to the sales trans file once again to perform this function. So I'd like to summarize. Okay, so I go to summarize can be performed numeric field. I go to what is called as a quick summarize. I click on quick and I say I want to perform based on sales and I want to accumulate the sales. Right, now I can get the result in descending or ascending order. I can also do group by, which means I want sales group by customer. I can do that. I'll say okay. Now you see what will happen. You will find for each unique value of sales, it gives me the count and it gives me the value. I can also sort it in ascending or descending order. Now if you see here, this is the total value of sales which happened. How many number of times it has happened? 750, what is the number? 1000. Like that you can get the complete list of all the sales which happened. So you'll be able to get the pattern of sales which happened as per each unique value of sales. Now this type of data, do you think this could be useful for the business or this could be useful for the analysis? Definitely yes. Depending on the need of the business, you can do. Can you do this in Excel? Yes, it is possible. You can figure out how you can do that in Excel also. Next, let's go to a very critical and very powerful function called as cluster or quadrant analysis. This displays data into specific clusters or quadrant as per the specific percentage for each category for the selected two numeric columns. Now I'm going to select the file called procurement here. And we need to perform the cluster analysis. The cluster analysis would be available in the analysis function. Classifier, I go to quadrant. First let me perform the quadrant, then we'll perform the cluster. First, now this works on XY axis. So first I select the material code, okay, and then I have the rate, unit price, okay, which means I want material code as the x-axis and unit price as the y-axis, and based on that I want to summarize. No, 1 minute, it has to be based on the quantity and then the unit price. Yeah, I've got this. Now I have the 4 quarters. Now I want the details based on this. Now if you see, all the data of procurement would be grouped into 4 quadrants. For each of the material code, based on the quantity and the unit price, I have got the data. For example, the first quadrant, you got the material code. For each of the material code, what are the quantity, what are the count, and what is the sum. Second, again, I get it for the quadrant 2, for the quadrant 3, and the quadrant 4. You also get all. You also got a chart for this. Okay, you can generate a chart for this. And you can view this data in Excel. So it means I have been able to group all the items based on the value between the lowest, which means the first 25%, next 25%, third 25%, and the last 25%. So I'll be able to pick up high items or low items, low and high items, or high and low items using this quadrant analysis. The cluster analysis is also similar to this, except that you can define the cluster. Now here I've got, I'm going to select the analysis field, which is the material code, and select the primary field. I'm going to select the unit price here. Now here unit price, I got the minimum is 8 and maximum is, I'll say I want clusters of 6. I want totally 6 clusters. Select the secondary field. Now first let me pick up the quantity itself here. Secondary field, I would like to pick up the unit price. Okay, it gives the minimum, and now the number of clusters is 6 only. Okay, I'll say okay. Interval, so I need to select the interval. Here I've selected 6. Number of clusters. I need to fill this. Okay. And I say okay. Now all this procurement has happened is grouped into 6 different clusters based on the quantity and the unit price, and for each material code, which means for each material code I'll be able to get the 6 groups, the cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3, and up to cluster 6, and also get all. So using this, I'll be able to make a very good analysis of how this procurement has been done based on different values. I have column statistics. This I showed you in the earlier presentation. I'll just show you a quick demo of this. So if you say column statistics, I go to details and I say column statistics. Now I got the quantity, unit price. So I'd like to, let's say, pick up the statistics for these 2 things, the numeric quantity in the amount. At a glance, I'll be able to get to know for each of these figures. For example, amount, I'll get the complete list of statistics. Similarly, for the quantity, I get the complete list of statistics. Based on this, I'll be able to identify, are there any exceptional items which need further probing analysis. It also gives me a macro perspective of the data in terms of the total value, total number, what is the minimum value, maximum value, etc. And this is about the column statistics function. Let's go to the 7th one, which is identify duplicates or unique. Now this function displays all duplicates or unique records in the selected columns. The duplicate can be identified based on all the fields to get exact duplicates. Let's come to our famous sales trans file. I already showed you this. Now I'm going to perform this once again. I want to perform duplicates, identify duplicates. I want to identify duplicate based on the invoice number. That's all. I say summary. Let's see the summary and see what will happen. Now this gives me the list of duplicates. Now you find here there are 3 invoices where it is blank. I got 1034, which will come twice. 1454, you get twice. Now item duplicate is also available in Excel, but whether summary is available, I'm not sure. You can get this. Now I want to see which are these 3 invoice numbers which are blank. I just double click. I think it's not able to show the details. I should be able to double click and see the details. Okay, so this is about how you can identify the duplicates. I can also identify duplicate based on multiple factors. For example, let's say I come to the procurement file. Now this is the procurement. I would like to identify, let's say, for a vendor code and the vendor name, are there duplicates? Okay, so I go to identify duplicates. Now it means I'm identifying duplicate based on 2 criteria. So I wanted based on the vendor name and the vendor code. So generally we should be able to get duplicate because there are multiple transactions which happened for each of the vendor codes and the vendor names. So now you see I get a complete list of the vendor code in there. So it picks up all the cases where the vendor code and the vendor name are similar. We also got one more function called same different, whereby you can find out where the vendor code and the vendor name is same, but the rate at which it has been purchased could be different, or the quantity and the quantity material code and the material name could be same, but the unit price could be different. Okay, this is how you can find out the identify duplicates. You can also identify uniques, which means you identify unique records based on this. Identify gaps. This side very simple. You identify the gaps between the series. Here I go to identify gaps, and I'm going to identify gaps in the numeric. Now here I picked up it's important that you pick up the right data. So this data is not right because I need to pick the data. So let me go back to our sales transfer file, identify gaps, numeric. What is important is, don't worry about which software is used for this. Identify and understand the concept. Okay, I can here specify the interval. For example, rent is paid every 30 days. I can give the intervals 30 days and then pick up exceptions based on that. Okay, so here I picked up the invoice number and I want to identify the gaps. It's very simple. I just select. You should be able to tell me what are the gaps. For example, here 1035 to 35, one gap is there. Here if you see 2002 to 2003, there are two gaps. So this is how you can find out and do what is called the gap analysis. You can also do group by and do multiple analysis as required. Now let's go to another interesting function which is called as the outlier analysis. This displays a record that's outside the specified boundaries based on specific criteria. So what is the specific criteria? As an auditor, you have to define depending on the business scenario. Okay. Let's say identify outliers. I would like to identify based on the numbers. Now here, I would like to pick up, now this is important, if you do analysis based on the outlier based on the invoice number, it's meaningless. Okay, so it's important you select the right data. So I selected the sales. Group by, I'm not doing any group by. I would like to pick up all the sales. Generally, I know the pattern of sales is 3 times. I'd like to pick up all the sales which is 3 times the average, or let's say 4 times the average sales. That's so simple. So I just select that and I say okay. So this should be able to give me the results. Okay, now you find here all the sales which are 4 times the average with the difference is given here at one shot. This is already copied and then you have this result. Right? Now let's go to the next function. Can you do this outlier analysis in Excel? Yes. Using a formula, definitely you can select the field, give the formula, and based on that you can perform. But it's not simple as in data analytics software. You need to understand that Excel is not designed from the perspective of data analytics. It is designed for processing of the data. So it is not designed for the audit perspective in mind. So, but as an auditor, if you have to do some more work to get the right data which you want or the right analysis you want to perform. Now let's look at the date sequence. The date sequence finds out the date between the difference in dates between two given dates. For example, if you look at the identify date sequence, gaps. Okay, it looks like I have lost track of where it is. Let's say, now we got it, date sequence. Now if you see here, I can do the date sequence based on the week. For example, I'm paying rent on a monthly basis or salary on a monthly basis or on a quarterly. I can find out this. I've got the invoice date here. I want to find out based on the date. Now show all the data or show difference only. Now you see what will happen here. It just computes based on the sequence, what you've given. You'll be able to identify are there any differences. Here you find for each of the dates you got the sequence and tells you how many number of times this particular transaction has occurred. Now let's come to sampling. You can extract specific samples from the population based on specific criteria, and sampling is one of the most important things used. There are various types of sampling. You have this ad hoc sampling or judgment sampling, or you can also do stratified sampling. I'll just show you what is called a stratified sampling here. Now if you see here, selection by sample, you can do based on the interval. Let me show you one simple example. I want to do based on this interval. So I say I want to select 10 records, 12 records. Okay. By default, it will compute based on the total number. It will compute and then give you what are the total number of records, 12 records you wanted. Okay, this is a simple type of sampling. Another sampling is, I would like to select sample based on the total count. I can do based on the numbers. Okay, so I have this total topics. So I want to pick up the number of records based on the top. I would like to pick up the top 10x records for sampling. So in this case, it goes through and picks up the top 10 records and gives you for the purpose of sampling. So these are the top 10 sales which happened. Okay, now let's go to another type of sampling by criteria. So you can do the analysis. Now what are the type of analysis you want to perform? You can perform numeric, character, outlier, etc. Okay, you can also do based on the profiling, and this is what I want to show you. Stratified numeric. Now if you see here, I want to find the sampling. Let me go to the right data. So we wanted to perform sampling. I come to sampling based on profiling. Now you see there are more than 34 types of sampling in this software. Depending on software, you may have different types of sampling. So you need to decide what is the one which is most relevant for you and then decide how to use it. So here I'm going to perform the same stratification which I did earlier, and I'm going to adopt it for sampling. You see how it happens. I got the sales, it gives me the intervals. Now I'd like to pick up, let's say, based on 15,000. Okay, I fill the interval and I say okay. Now first thing it has done is it has stratified the data based on the given criteria. Once I've given the criteria, I've got the result here. Now this result gives me what is the sample, what is the stratification, which means what are the sales between 500 to 15,500, 15,500 to 30,500. So it has got the strata. Now I'd like to extract the samples from this. So I click on the sampling button. Now it gives me the option to enter the data. In the first one, I'd like to pick up 12. In the next one, I would like to pick up 6. In this, I would like to pick up, let's say, 7. So you can decide what is this based on your analysis. You can decide the number of samples you want. 337, you'd like to pick 5. Now in this high value, you'd like to 8 are there. You'd like to pick all the 8. In this high value items, you'd like to pick up all the values. Okay, so you can decide what are the sampling you want. So based on the specified value, so it means you're not picking sampling just based on some ad hoc analysis. Based on the value and the materiality of that, you are picking the samples. Now it analyzes the data and picks up all the sample based on the specific value which you have given. Now this is the power of the data analytics software, that you can actually specify the criteria. It processes the data and gives you the result in a fraction of seconds. So now you should be able to get the result. Now you got totally 78 samples. Now if you look at the total value based on this, you find all the high value items would have come. Now you see all the high value items based on what are selected, you got the result. This is what I've shown you is one example of sampling. So like that, there are 34 types of sampling. Different types of sampling, software may have different types of sampling. So use judgment sampling, not just based on ad hoc judgment, based on specific data. Now split the data. So in this case, as I said, it's very simple. I would like to have this data. I have this data and I have multiple users. Now if I use a filter, I should be able to get to know how many number of users are there. Okay, now if you see, there are probably about 10 types of users there. And I also see interesting thing that there are blank user IDs also. Okay, I would like to split the data and I would like to have this data based on the group, which means I would like to have split the data based on the user ID. Okay, so if I say based on the user ID, I should be able to group the data as per each user ID. I'll get separate sheets of data for each of this. For example, now you see it has already created a index sheet. I click on this. It has created a separate workbook. Now this workbook, if you see here, this is the index sheet. For each user, you got the data. Now just imagine the same way, I got the sales which has been made and I would like to group this based on the rate or based on the product. I'll be able to get the complete sales data into separate sheets. For example, I got the sales data as per GST. I would like to split this based on the month. I can split this data, complete data which has come in one sheet. Now here I also get to know what are the 10 cases where the sales doesn't have a user ID. Okay, this is how you can use what is called as split data. Right, now let's come back to function. MIS displays the count, total, minimum, maximum, average of the records. This I showed you to some extent earlier. Let me show you quickly now. MIS. I got based on the sales. I go to MIS. Now I would like to have based on, let's say, month wise. I would like to have the sales as per the month. I click OK. Now I should be able to get the sales month wise. Okay, so for each of the months I get, not only that, I can actually sort this in ascending or descending order by a single click. Okay, I can get the result in Excel by just clicking this. Okay, now this is how you can get MIS. I can also get MIS for all the sheets. For example, there are so many types of MIS which can be computed. I can also get MIS of different types. Let me just quickly explain. Now I got this MIS. Now I've got MIS pertaining to the sales. Okay, now there are various types of MIS available. If you see here, I want to say select all. When I say select all, it'll say where do you want the result. It'll compute the result and give you an existing workbook or a new workbook. So it means you can actually generate the MIS for all the functions at one shot. Let's say if I go to procurement, procurement has many more data. Now I go to MIS, click on MIS. Now if you see here, it gives me all the fields. I can select all the fields and I say I want MIS and I select all. Okay. Now I should be able to get this result in a new workbook. With the new workbook, it asks me to give me the path. I select the path. So this is going to be in desktop. I'll give this as a MIS result. Now it means all the MIS for all the fields I should be able to get in a few seconds. So if you see here, there are about 8 fields and I've selected all the MIS, day of the month, day of the week, etc. As it computes each of them, it shows you the result. So it computes the result for each of them. Now in some of the cases where there are multiple functions like this, where it takes time, you cannot use Excel, there is an option where you may also perform this result in background. When you say in background, the result will be posted in the background so that you can continue to work in Excel. Okay, so now you see these various functions. I click on the sample data to get the sample data. I want to open this first sample data. Okay, we need to go faster. So I got the sales transaction file. I was showing you the Pareto analysis. So let's come back to Pareto analysis. Okay, Pareto analysis there in analysis. I come to analysis, Pareto. Okay, so it's important to select the right fields. So I am going to select based on the sales, and I want primary sales is also sales, which means based on the sales, I would like to, let's pick up the sales based on the name, which means I want for each name, I want the total sales and I want them grouped together 80 based on the 80-20 rule. I say okay. Now if you see here, in one click you got the 80-20 rule. So it means you got the sales which happened based on the name. Who are the customers, top 20 customers who are contributing 80% of the sales. Now we know totally there are 6,666, whereas now 1,840 sales customers have contributed 80%. Now you come to the Pareto 20. Now you find there are 3,168 who contributed to 20% of the sales. Okay, so this is how you can perform Pareto analysis. Can you perform Pareto analysis in Excel? Yes, you can perform in Excel also, but you have to do the computations as required. Now let's come to relative size factor. Relative size factor is a statistical formula which is very powerful. It computes a difference between the highest and the second highest, and based on that you can find out the difference and the percentage. Let me demonstrate, then I think it will become very clear. So for this we have to go to the procurement file. I come to the procurement file. Okay, so I would like to compute the relative size factor. Relative size factor should be available in analysis. Relative size factor. Now here it's important that you select the right fields. I'm going to compute based on the material code. Now I want to know what is the purchases for each material code. What is the relative size factor? Which means the unit based on the unit price. I would like to see. Now when you look at the result, I think you'll very quickly understand how this relative size factor works. For each material code, it will give you, if you see here, for each material code, it will give you what are the count of the items, what are the highest rate at which you bought, what is the second highest rate that you bought, what is the relative difference, and what percentage of difference. For example, this particular material code 462, you bought at the highest at 165, second highest is 17 rupees, and the difference 150, and the relative difference is 10. So now this definitely, these are exceptional items. So you can find out why this particular difference happened and what is the reason this particular difference is there. So you're able to identify the exceptions very, very quickly. Benford law is very simple. Based on the Benford law, I'll show you the result and explain to you. Now let me come back again to sales trans. So I have got the statistics. In the statistics, I've got the Benford law. When I show you the result, I think it becomes easy to explain. I'm going to take Benford law based on numeric. It has to be only for numeric data, and this data should be unstructured, which means you're not going to structure the data, which means you cannot do Benford law for invoice number, which is sequence number or check number or employee number, where you are giving the number. These are ad hoc values which are available at random, which means the customer can purchase sales of any value. Okay, I'm going to perform on the first digit. Now you see, it will perform the Benford law, apply the Benford law, and tell you what are the sales which happened based on digit number 1, digit number 2, or digit number 3. As per the Benford law, it gives you the statistics that the possibility that the number starts with 1. We got the result here. Gone to the background. Now you see here, Benford law, it says the probability the digit 1 should be 30%, where the actual percent is 13. The probability to start with 2 is actually 18%. Similarly, the probability to start with 9 is 5%, whereas actually is 1%. So based on this, you should be able to find out, are there unusual patterns of data, which means somebody is committed a fraud. He'll try to do the transaction between 8 and 9. You find instead of the usual percentage of 5, the Benford law data, when you do the analysis, you find the percentage very high. And this is how you can drill down and find out which are the exceptions. Join files, this is where you can connect two files. So far we have seen only singular files and we have done analysis based on single files. Now we are going to do the analysis based on two files. What you'd like to do is, I've got the sales limit transaction, I've got the sales transaction limit. These are two files. Now if you look at the sales transaction, I don't have the authorization limit. I'm going to relate these two files, join these two files, and add the limit here. So I'm going to use a function called relate join files. I say yes. We do not, this is what I said. Do you want to perform the background? I do not want to perform the background. Said no. I've got the sales. First file I've selected. Second file I have to select the sales authorization limit. Okay. Now I match the user ID is equal to user ID and say equals. Now it gives me multiple options, so result options. Whether I want to only match records in primary, like that. I'm just going to select one option for the time being, only match records. So you will get a result for each of the okay, there are too many. Yes, now I got the result here. If you see here, for each of the sales which happened, there are 6,666, whereas here we got 6,654. So for each of the user or the sales transaction, it has added the limit. Now it means wherever the data is available, it is joined and added the limit. Using this, I can perform further analysis as required. This is how you can perform relate files. Now, can you do this in Excel? Yes, you can also do this in Excel using the, I leave it to you to figure out which of the functions you can use it to join two files. You can use the VLOOKUP file. Now, this is a consolidate, which you are very familiar with this. This function is also available in Excel, where you can select a group of files, consolidate them based on a particular criteria, and get the result. Now, I got these files. Let's see which file I can use for this. I go to the index sheet so that I can get to know which of the files available. I've got this expense April, May, and June. Okay, I come to expense April. Now, if you see here, expense May, and I got expense June. Okay, all these are the same type. Now, I'd like to consolidate, relate, consolidate. Now, I'll do a checking of these fields. Now I got this field. Now it is also found out which are the files which have gone similar type of a columns. Okay, and I want to expense April. I want to consolidate based on the head. I said it's very important that you select the right fields. I want to consolidate based on the head. And what is the total I want? I want total based on the expenditure. And I want for expense April and expense May and June. I say okay. Now you see the magic which happens to technology. See, in a few seconds, I've got the list of all the expenditure. It gives me the count and it also gives me the sum for each of the fields. Now, where this could be used, for example, you got trial balance of 10 companies and the head of accounts is similar. You take the trial balance, consolidate this, you'll get a complete result here. Okay, so this is how you can do the consolidate. Now, we got compare files. This is a very powerful function. So you can display the count, sum of the difference of two or more similar columns. Let's pick up this function. Now here I go to the specific field which I want let's say I would like to do comparison. For this, I have two files. Let's say invoice 2016, which gives the sales of 2016. I've got invoice 2017, which is the sales of 2017. I'd like to compare the sales of these 2 years. By default, I'm in 2016. I'm going to select 2017. Okay. Now you see, you get this particular fields which are matching. Then I select the, what is that I want? I want to do based on the customer number, which means for each customer number, I want to compare, and I want total of, I can get based on various parameters. I would like to do based on the amount. So in data analytics, it's very important that you know what is the result you're looking for and select the right fields. Now, what is the result I'm expected to get? For each of the year, it totals the sales as per the customer number and gives me the comparison between the sales for each of the years 2016 as per each of the customer number. For example, here customer number 10,000, the total number of sales is 3. In the second year it's 5, and which means the sales has gone down. Okay, you also get the total for each of the years. Now if you see here, if I just go and say 0, now you find these are the customers who are not there in primary, which means these were customers who did not have any sale in the previous year but had sale in the current year. Similarly, if I give 0 here, I should be able to get what are the sales which are there for customers which are there previously, but there are no sales during the current year. So at one glance, you'll get a complete sales analysis. You can do as per the customer, you can do as per the sales, you can do as per the product. Based on various criteria, you can perform this analysis. Now we come to the last but not the least, the analytical review. Now here what we're doing is we are finding out the difference between two values of numeric columns in number and in percentage. Let's see here. So I need to have the right file for this. Let's see what file I have. I think I have got the balance sheet file. Now these are all the sample files we got. I've got the balance sheet file, profit and loss account file, 15, 16, 16, 17. Okay, now this is single column. I think we can perform here. Let's say this 16, 17. Now 16, 17. Let's see here. Now I would like to perform the article review. I've taken 16, 17, only one numeric column, so there is an issue here. Okay. Anyway, let me explain this concept so I think we can get. So what you will get in the case of analytical review is you get the difference between two fields, and you'll also get the percentage in the counter. So in this presentation, we have covered the 20 top functions which are used in data analytics. You can also find some of the functions can be performed in Excel or in the application software also. In the next part of the presentation, we're going to cover the last part, which we're going to cover two things. How can auditors use data analytics for assurance and compliance, and how auditors can use data analytics to navigate the future. So what are the key thoughts I want you to take away from this presentation? We can't do today's job with yesterday's tools and still be in the business tomorrow. We can't do today's work with yesterday's skills and tools and expect to remain employed tomorrow. I'm sure you understand the criticality of the digital data and the need for using data analytics. So thank you very much. I hope this presentation is useful. I've gone at a fast pace, but the objective of my presentation was to give you an overview of how data analytics functions are very simple but very powerful, and they can be used to analyze 100% of the data. So thank you very much. You can pause and see this presentation again and again if you want. Okay, and where are the functions available? I expect you to explore and find out what are the type of functions which could be useful for you. Now, it's not necessary you should use all the 20 functions. It could be possible there are 6 or 8 functions which could be most effective or useful for you. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in the last part of the presentation. Bye.